Hello and welcome back to Ace Ideas. I'm your friendly neighborhood mask, and this week I'm discussing asexuality and culture. And I'll hopefully be able to offer you a bit of a different perspective to everyone else on the channel because I'm Australian. Australian, I said that a bit funny. Australian. Um, so yeah, that might be interesting, being from a completely different continent to most of the other people on this channel. Um, so yeah, and I think what I want to say about how asexuality is treated in Australia is I think that most LGBT groups are very accepting of this orientation. It's a bit less of a fight, it's just they don't know we're there. And I feel that most groups are willing to involve asexual people as soon as they realize that we're a legitimate thing that actually exists. Yeah, and that's another thing that might be different. I think we here in Australia get a lot less visibility than people in the US or the UK do, for example, even though we're all English-speaking countries and we tend to speak about sex, sexuality, and in particular asexuality in very similar ways. There's just not as many opportunities for asexual visibility here in Australia. Despite that, I think that most Australians tend to have quite accepting attitudes in regards to it. There obviously is a lot of ignorance and a lot of uneducation. There's a lack of education. Yeah, I think that once people understand it, most Australians are pretty okay with the idea of people being asexual. There are some differences between, say, people who've been in Australia and their families have been in Australia for generations, who've grown up here their whole lives, and people, say, who migrated here. There is a definite difference in those attitudes, and I can't quite explain what it is, but I know that like the friends that I've talked to about my asexuality that are from generations and generations of Australian families who've been here for generations, versus the ones that their parents came from another country, there's quite a distinct difference and a lack of understanding why someone may not want to, like, especially in my case, I don't want romantic relationships, and it's a lot harder for people to understand, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way things are, and, yeah, but, which can be surprising, but it's how things are. I'm not sure if it's the same with migrants in other Western countries, so I'm interested to hear about that too. But that's how it is in Australia nonetheless, and it's quite likely that there'll be some similarities, because we do, we have the same preoccupation with sex in the media, we use the same kind of format for thinking about sex and sexuality, whereas other countries don't. And there are very, very distinct differences in how here in Australia we approach the topic of asexuality to, say, people in Eastern countries. I know I have a friend who lives here now but is from Vietnam, and she said that when they talk about asexuality there, it's all from the perspective of aromanticism as well, and you don't get that discussion about people who are asexual and romantic, and that's one of the things I loved about finding the asexual community, because it doesn't just talk about asexuality, but it talks about intersectional identities and how you can have a sexual orientation and a romantic orientation, and they don't necessarily have to align. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on this. I'm sorry if I haven't spoken for very long or shared anything too insightful. But I think it's a very interesting topic, and I wish I knew more about it. I feel like my knowledge is very limited because I've only really lived in Australia, so I'm going off, I guess, generalizations and stereotypes, and I don't really want to do that. I would rather talk from experience. But yeah. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer it. So yeah, please comment, or Facebook or Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google Plus. You can message me on my personal channel, any of those things. I really would love to hear from you. Sorry this video is late. I've been quite busy lately, but I'm glad I've gotten to finally make this video because it's been quite delayed. But thank you. See ya. Bye.